sitting in for him. Commissioner Fuchselberger appears to be out, so we do have a quorum and we'll proceed. Yes, I would also like to, if any of you were here last, I noticed we announced on the paper that we were meeting a week.
Was it in the paper
It
then?
was in the Sunday paper, I didn't check it Tuesday. So we're gonna pay attention more.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get going. First of all, approval of the minutes of the last meeting, September 8th. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Minutes are approved. Approval of the September 17th special meeting. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Approval of the September 24th executive session minutes. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So approved. The October claims docs.
Looking over the October claims documents, I don't see anything that's too different than you normally see. We did have the yellow highlighted one for Robertson paving. That was a carryover from last year that just got completed of the seal coating the parking lots. We've had some issues on, you can see a protector replacement from Sterling garage doors. We've had some issues on our gates, actually quite a few different gates around the property over the course of the last month. We replaced 2 or 3 leak detectors and had 2 of them run into. One of them over on Golf. One of them over on Golf caused some damage. Gate number 2, which goes into the Cummins facility here next to the emergency gate, was run into by a delivery truck. And then we had another one that mysteriously jumped off the track, and we're not sure if it got hit or not. So it's been a bad month or 2 here for gates. So you'll see a couple of gate repair options on the claims line.
This property tax.
What's the
timing? Why October?
Isn't it due November?
November 10th or 15th, I think is the due date.
And you won't get another board meeting until the actual test.
I'm sorry, interrupted you.
No, I was just going to go through any, if you had any other questions on items. I think everything else is fairly self-explanatory.
The hotel's been back and forth a couple of times. Is there any money in
It's not been one we've addressed.
I move to approve. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? So approved. Now, on to new business. Discussion and request for approval on modification to foresee lease.
The board's been aware of this modification that we had to do for some time. Ever since we've sold the property, we've been, well, ever since the initial sales process went through, we would have to modify to reduce the amount of lease acres down to what they're currently leasing. So we sold that 35.89 acres, so now they have a total acres that they lease of 104.41. So essentially this is a modification to reduce the lease acres. Mike has reviewed it, as well the Forcia attorneys have reviewed it, signed off on it, and it's here with their signature as well.
Questions? Questions from the public? Motion?
We approve the modification for first deal lease.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Okay, next item. Discussion and request for approval on modification to the SIHO lease.
This lease, as you were aware in the last April board meeting, Chip Orban from Soccer Express Club showed interest in a property that was auctioned currently by the SIHO organization. We presented that request to SIHO. They have agreed to auction, to take the additional option under the entire lease. So this is essentially moving that lease for them to lease the entire acres that they were auctioning previously at the same price per acre fee. It was all laid out in how we would do it from that option.
They just exercise the option that they have.
Correct. And Mike has reviewed this, the SIHO attorney has reviewed this document. It's ready for your approval.
Discussion, questions from the public?
So I would move that we approve the SIHO lease option.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Request is approved. Discussion and request for approval on resolution for self-fueling non-reverting fund.
This non-reverting fund was set up 2 years ago for our self-fueling system. As a part of things we would have to do every year, we've got to essentially appropriate the amount of money to utilize. This, in the past, we've allocated $80,000. We didn't feel that it was enough. In fact, we may have to end up figuring something out before the end of the year. This year, we too much less. Next year, we've requested, and at the end of the day, this will matter what the final number is. It comes out of our general account, goes back into our general account. We're requesting $150,000 be allocated and $20,000 be allocated from self-fuel sales tax, which we pay the state for every gallon.
This leaves city council out of the loop.
The city council approved a resolution essentially allowing us to do this if the airport board every year was to do this measure.
When they set up the fund on the front, that, when they set up the fund, that's when this mechanism. Said discussion have to go back to the council, what we heard.
Say again, end of the year product, we may not be able to get fuel.
Right. At this point, we don't have enough money in our account to purchase an entire load of fuel. We did just purchase a load last week or something, so we've got nearly 10,000 gallons in the tank. I anticipate that will last us through the end of the year. If not, we can probably purchase another 3,000 or 4,000 gallons of what we have left in the fund now. We just don't want to be stuck in this predicament again. So
That's a good problem to have.
yeah, it's a good problem to have. I mean, we sold more fuel than we were anticipating this
Except
year.
we're paying enormous,
Yeah.
paying enormous freight on it.
Yeah, you pay several cents a gallon.
Definitely want to make sure we're covered.
And this year, you can look at special appropriation, so there will be few.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand what I said, Matt, there will be few.
More questions from the board? Discussion, questions from the public?
So, fuel, non-recurring fund.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that concludes new business. We're on to the tower.
We still have your
Sorry, Marvin. The short one. Okay, I have discussion on REMC future development.
I'll set this up to say that, so we've been talking a lot about the Roseville development, how that's going to happen. Obviously, we sold a significant amount of acres to proceed for the future plans. REMC contacted me maybe about a month ago, or a little less, about the need to run additional electric to proceed the plan. So Marvin and Jim, sorry I forget the other one's name, all we all met a couple weeks ago. We discussed some various options. And I think that's what they're here, essentially, to kind of tell you the options. We're not yet ready to request easements yet, as I understand it. You guys want to take the floor and then
Yeah.
carry out here if you need.
Yeah, I'll start. I'm Jim Turner, the CEO of RMC, so thank you for allowing us to come and talk to you a little bit about this project. And I got Marvin Book, he's going to speak here in a minute about the specific plans. We got some maps to show you. And then Jeff Jackson's our line superintendent, so he can add some value to this too. But I guess a long story short is, this project kind of came up to us almost literally overnight. I mean, we kind of read about it in the paper, the next day they're moving dirt, and so we're like, well, what's happening, So that started our process of contacting them and trying to find out what they were doing, what kind of building they were constructing, what their electrical requirements were going to be, and that took a few meetings back and forth just to get with the right people, I guess you could say, at Forcia or whoever the developer is, and to determine, what are their load requirements going to be. And so that kind of starts everything with us. We find out what they need, and then we figure out how we're going to get it to them, right? So that started the process, and so ever since that time, there's been a lot of talk back and forth, and the gist of the matter is that the load requirements that they're telling us they're going to need eventually, or when they get up to speed, is a pretty big requirement. For you, it might not mean much, but they're saying to us it's 9 megawatts of power. That's a lot of electricity. And currently on the site, we don't have capacity to be able to provide them 9 megawatts of power. We have capacity with some minor adjustments to our existing circuits there that we can provide them 4 megawatts of power. So the plan right now is we've gotten temporary power, so they've got lights and that type of thing for their construction. And then by November 1st, we're planning on getting them up to 4 megawatts of power off of kind of our existing facilities that are there. But the bigger problem is longer term, by March 1, they're telling us,
March 1st.
that by March 1st, they're going to need the full 9 megawatts. So
Excuse me, is that the substation toward the interstate to the west?
We'll show you a map in a minute, but yes, in essence, we're going to have to come out of an existing substation. It's called Woodside Substation.
Yeah.
It's just south of Toyota, west of the airport property. Force Construction, or Force LLC, owns a piece of property between the substation and the Wellsboro property. And we'll show you a map here in a minute. So I'm just kind of setting up the stage, and then we'll talk about the specifics of how we propose to get the power to them. So that's kind of the history of it. So we've got a little bit of an issue and a time crunch, obviously, of getting them that magnitude of power within a few months, because it's not an easy process construction-wise, as well as looking for a route. And that's what we're here to talk to you today about, is a route that we'd like to take. Of course, the cost issue and all that's not your issue, that's their issue. But so we wanted to review with you today the route that we would like to take to get to them, and so that doesn't, hinder your development opportunities later on if the park continues to expand or it's created into an industrial park. But we have limited choices or routes that we can get there. And we talked to Brian about this preliminarily. I think you shared it with the consultant, HWC. They don't seem to have an issue with it at this point, but we'd like to share with you that route, and then we'll take it from here and go back and prepare actually easements to present to you so that we can actually begin construction on that at some point in the very near future. And then a bigger issue, we can talk about this maybe after, the specifics of this project would be future development of the park and how we need to be involved from kind of the get-go, if possible, as you're looking at plans into the future, because we don't have enough power at this park to do any more than what we're doing currently. So anything else that would come in there, we'd be looking at a similar situation. We have some ideas of what we can do to get the park ready for additional tenants. But then you're looking at substations and some things like that. So we can talk about that a little bit today or more in the future, but it's more just a heads up that please keep us in the planning process so that we can work with your consultants as this project develops, so that we can be in on the front end and make sure we've got adequate electric service for people that you want to bring into the park. So with that being said, I'll let Marvin come up and share with you. He's got some maps for you and our proposed route, and we can feel free to ask any questions as we kind of go through this. Is that pretty clear as to kind of where we're at and why we want to be here? Okay.
What you got there is kind of our proposed route for the distribution line. And like Jim was saying, we've got two parts to this. First part is to get by November 1st the 4 megawatts of service to them. And what the plan is there is to come up 100 west, and that's going to be expanded into the park. So you can see that it'll come up and then behind Forcia and then into this area here. So and you'll see a little or ditch down, and that'll be the service we provide to them right away off the existing circuit, because our existing circuit is down through here along 450 South. And then to get a new circuit in there, what we're proposing is, if you look, there's our Woodside substation is located right here. The Duke Energy Wellsboro substation is down here. That may be the one you referred to earlier. But this one is our substation up here is Woodside. What we're proposing is to cut across the Force Holdings property there over to here, and then come down and follow the sewer line. There's an existing sewer line and water line in there as well. And then from there, then we get on the Forcia property and over and serve the new plant there.
What's that structure out there in the middle of the field?
That is, that's
The
the
service
pumping
station, there's a big pump station at the city.
Yeah. And that's served currently with overhead facilities, so we'd be removing the overhead facilities and replacing that with underground. So that's kind of a big benefit to this as well.
So Marvin, if roads, do we need to be cognizant of where drives might be at this time?
If we know where they're going, yeah.
What if we don't?
Well, that was the discussion that we had with HWC, the engineering firm that's working on the Wellsboro property, as far as how will we be able to service this without affecting the overall park. And the idea is that we're going to go right next to city utilities, which are already underground and in place with easements. Therefore, these guys can lay an easement right next to it, and won't overall affect the park, because we would be designing around that.
Yeah, but we don't see the city, the sewer and water really moving from where they're already at. So that's kind of what we're kind of just following the route their direction, they're going and kind of stay in that same area. And we're trying to keep, our easement, I think we're looking at 15 foot, which is kind of just minimal, just enough for us to get in there and, get our stuff in there. And then on the, you'll see on this side, we're for 20 foot, because I think there's some other utilities going in there, so we were looking for just a little bit more, because I think when I talked with Keith Reeves, water's going up there in that same area that we are, so we wanted to make sure we had a little more room for us to work with.
And that'd be underground too, I assume.
So does that one stay in place after you do the one from the Woodside?
Yes. That'll give us a loop to that facility, which will be very beneficial for them, and that's and then possibly, we can also serve this property here, the Force property too, with all this in the future. If something goes in there, so it's kind of a benefit for him as well. So.
A couple of questions. There's a Duke substation to the lower left off the map, or maybe the other map. Who does Duke serve on that?
Duke serves like Impact Forge, is it Inkai, MC Aluminum, I think, and then biggest customer is gonna be Impact Forge, it's all in this area, so that's what their substation is serving. We're kind of landlocked as far as what, additional, load they'll be serving from that substation. And it's kind of, well, it's, as far as capacity, it doesn't have any more. It's a 30 MVA with 5 circuits out of it, it probably doesn't mean anything to you.
You may or may not know, but we actually have boundaries that either we serve or Duke Energy serves. I mean, legal boundaries. So everything in the current Walesboro area, the current Walesboro Airport property, will be served by RMC. Okay. So Duke has none of that. Whereas the other industrial park to the west, it's kind of funny the way it works. We actually serve a few customers in there, and Duke serves some, but there are geographic lines as to who serves what areas.
So they can't go to Duke for a lower bid.
Not really. Or higher.
My standard question, if 2 megawatts of solar power were available, would it change
We still need the circuit, and then if you look at when solar's peaking versus, when their plant's peaking, you're still gonna have to have the 9 megawatts of capacity there, and, so that would just, for a few hours of the day, it might help us. That's still not gonna be enough to get us over the hump for. We'd still need a new circuit.
Well, I understand. There's
Yeah.
a lot nobody's putting in 9 megawatts solar.
Yeah.
But I just wondered if there would be any effect at all. I mean, basically not. Even though,
Yeah, some, but not enough to, we still have to invest in the infrastructure that, we're looking at today. It's not gonna change anything there as far as that, amount of energy they may consume, like, impact that some, but our infrastructure is still gonna be the same.
9 megawatts, not a small load. Give you an idea, like NTN's like twice that. NTN, big plant, one of our largest customers. So, we weren't expecting 9 megawatts, so we're having to kind of hustle to figure out a way to get it to them. And then as the park continues to expand, like I said, we want to be involved and talk about future substation site and how we're going to serve the rest of the park as it continues to develop. And that's where, we need to be on the front end so that when they're looking at where a road's going to go and sewer and water and all that, that there's a plan. And it's not just hodgepodge, because we can't just serve it, hodgepodge. We need to kind of have a plan, because we're reaching our maximum capacity. The substation actually is having to be upgraded to serve this 9 megawatts, and once we do that, it's maxed out. So anything more that goes in that area, we'll have to have a new substation. And that's a long-term, a lot of lead time to build a substation. So we just need to be in the loop.
There's really not enough information on future users
Right.
to warrant looking at anything further at the moment. Is that
Exactly.
kind of what you're saying? Okay. Ryan, do we know of anything that might
I don't think
help
we'll
us
know.
make a better decision in terms of where to put this, or how to?
No, talking with the HWC, which is, again, the consulting firm working on the Wellsville property, they think this is the best location to be able to place something with the needs that we have. Well, we know that. Sure, makes sense.
what should we have in the certain over? Anything we need to worry about, chew our fingernails on? It's all going to happen perfectly.
And where we're at right now, we've got, Ray is doing some survey work for us to work on the descriptions of what the easements would look like and all that, so, and then we would just put it on our standard easement form, once we get those, descriptions from him. So that's kind of where we're at with it, because, we're in the, under the gun here to get this done pretty quick, so.
Do you think you'll be back to us at the November 10th airport board meeting with these requests?
Yeah, I think so.
By the way, we've had conversation with Force LLC, Harold Force, and David Force Construction that owns that other property. They've given us permission to come across their property to get to the Wellsboro, so they're in favor of that, so that's not gonna be an issue. If they wouldn't have allowed us to do that, then we'd be looking at a different route. But this is by far the best. We've looked at a lot of different options. It shouldn't impact the future of hopefully the park because it's following the existing easement, so to speak.
Is this power ultimately coming from those high lines that are a quarter mile south, maybe a mile south?
You're talking about the transmission lines?
Yeah.
The transmission line set west of the property, Marvin pointed out, but they run west of the property and come down to basically Cummins entrance.
Yeah, the transmission line currently runs down through here, I think it turns here, and down through here, and then ends up at the, where was it? Here it is here. Ends up over here somehow or other, but I know it's come down here and follows this route.
But we're coming out of the substation. This will be underground, all the way from the Marvin's Point, where the substation is.
Okay.
So back there, along that tree line of Forces, as your map shows, it'll be underground all the way underneath 175 to the edge of the airport property and then down. So it's underground the whole way, from the substation to proceed.
And this is that 12 kV is the voltage of the circuit where we'll be running. Transmission is 69 kV. It's supplied from the Columbus, on the Dukes, Benoit Creek substation by the interstate. You've probably seen that.
Yeah, that's at it. All that stuff's at it. Everything at 69 kilovolts at it.
Yeah.
This will be cable, to give you an idea about that big around. There'll be 3 of them. And so it's underground the whole way. It's quite a bit of power.
It's 10,000.
But it's just enough to serve their plan. So if their plan ends up being what they say it's going to be, as far as the load. But we have to plan for what they're telling us. And what we do.
Any other questions?
Is the stuff shown on here the peak point to proceed?
The what?
There's a stub, like a red routing line.
A stub that goes south from the line, that will be where their main switchgear feed is.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you, Marvin, Jim. We will see some subset of you next month.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're ready this time.
Only if you are. That's good enough, sure. Just talking about traffic for a moment, the year-to-date numbers, and Brian can correct me, what I just saw we're looking at real quick, we're still ahead, because this September was a little bit better than last September on our numbers, our total numbers. Right now, I just looked at October for right now, and we're running right about with what last October was doing, so that should keep us ahead. I don't know how far ahead we are with year-to-date numbers, but it's like for several years, we're better off.
Yeah, our year-to-date figure right now is 33,342, which is year-to-date better than any year we've had since prior to 1999, that's when we started keeping year-to-date figures.
See, I stick these numbers in a month at a time. I don't really look at the whole picture sometimes, I do it boom, 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 and I let those guys do the big trend, But anyway, it looks good, and I would attribute that, I suppose, to a little bit more flight training, it seems, both military and civil. And I even noticed some people coming in from out, and they'll do some touch and goes, on their cross countries and things, or they'll come from training. And I think Tom Jeffries has some of them coming down from Greenwood and doing some, at the Tower Airport here, doing some pattern work and things. So that's another benefit of Jeff Air being here, is they're pulling from Greenwood now, as well as here. So that helps us too. What else I was going to say? something else, and I've lost my train of thought. Oh, not that important, but really, that was the big thing, is the traffic. Weather's been great, glad to have 1432 back to talk to him about a while ago, and things seem to be fine on that. And everybody's good, ready to go into the winter, I guess, so ready for snowplows. Anybody have anything for me? I should have. Thank you.
Attorneys report, Mr. McIver?
Nothing to report this month?
We don't have a farm manager out there, do we?
No, he had another obligation to go to. He did give us his report, his written report. First crop soybeans have harvested, dry land, we see all the bushel per acre. He does say that the double crop soybeans are 2 to 3 weeks from harvest, so the only thing we've got yet to harvest out there is the double crop soybeans. Wheat seeded on the Marl Road in northwest Pivot, so you can start to see it's already starting to pop up in quite a few areas. Things are going fine.
There was a farm expense back on the claims, is that just to buy the electricity?
The wheat was essentially the wheat that we just planted. That we weren't aware of. Well, it's not part of the chemical buy that we do at the beginning of the year.
Engineers report?
Well, the runway is open, officially, so that's good. We did have some minor hiccups with a couple joint lines. Unfortunately, we had to do some grinding. We did explore all options with that. Obviously, I would have liked to have removed and replaced the panels and report those. But being in the runway safety area 523, we would have to shut down the airport again. So we elected to go with a heavy highway type diamond grinder and ground down those joints, not sacrificing any structural integrity of the concrete. We still have 11 inches of thickness, which is greater than what we had even designed it at, being 10 inches. So I'm not concerned with it. It looks good. It's flowing. It looks just like if you're driving down a highway and you see the grinding operation on concrete. You can't feel it. So it came out pretty well. We're not ponding anymore, and we flooded that. Brian's checked that for us as well, and has been a big part of the decision making. So all in all, they're working on the preliminary punch list, and we have a final inspection for both phases scheduled for next Wednesday at 9 a.m. We then will finalize the punch list items. They're probably going to wait until they see that final punch list item before they mow it back in and get all that work done. That's right, we're waiting on the thermoplastic to come in. We're looking at 1st of November before we're putting that down. Could get lucky, see that, but I would say it's going to be more like the first week of November after talking with Bryce before we get the thermoplastic hit. So that's really it, unless there's questions on 1452, any of the construction.
I know, we were kind of keeping you as the airport board advised of what was going on out there from a ponding standpoint, but at the end of the day, it really did turn out to be pretty nice. I was a little bit worried. I think we were all a little worried about what it looked like, but they did it all in overnight hours, and I came out the first night when they were doing it and spent a couple hours with them. They really knew what they were doing. They shot the grade right. The water is now flowing with no issues at all, so very pleased with how it turned out.
So it did take a little bit more time, before we could open up runway 1432, but all in all, I think it was the best decision just to go ahead and grind those panels, because we'd still be down if we had to remove and replace them. We do have a pay request number 3. It's under AIP 27, which is the second phase, or the grant we received this year. It is for resident engineering and construction management time. The total cost of that is $43,954.81, with a local match under AIP 27 of $2,197.07. We would like to request an approval for that pay request.
I'll move to approve the pay request for Wilbert for the $43,954.
Thank you very much.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Great. We, thank you very much. We went to AAI last week, and I know Brian's probably going to update everybody on that conference, but we did have a meeting. Caleb and Brian were there to present what's going on at the airport in front of Melanie Myers, who's your program manager at the ADO, and then Deb Bartel, who is her boss, as well as in the Office of Aviation. Meeting went very well, I thought. They are looking at continuing per the CIP that we laid out, which was designed for taxiway whiskey and Charlie in fiscal year 2016, and then in 2017 start the construction on that. We are also requesting that we talked to them about the maintenance costs that's been incurred for the taxiway alpha lighting, and really the need to have that replaced sooner than later. They did ask us to submit a cost to be able to do that, which in your emails, if you check those, I do have a cost breakdown for you of what that would be. And that's to convert it to an LED system, but a complete remove and replace. We have submitted that to Melanie. I submitted it to Brian as well. And we're going to have to wait until year-end money in 2016, try to get a pop-up grant to be able to get that taken care of. There is no guarantee on that. We're hoping, we're crossing our fingers, and we'll write up a justification letter. We'll let you see that when it's complete. And
What about the Cummins issue?
that would be for the runway. And correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, I know you've had further
yes.
conversations.
Yeah. And I did, just because I thought that question would come up, I talked with Chris Raskow about that, and he says, if it's on taxi, there's no issue. It's on the runways, it's the other issue.
What's the scope of the taxiway Charlie project? Is that a resurface?
It's probably going to be well, Charlie, if I remember right, it's probably going to be more, it's going to be a rehabilitation. It won't be a full depth reconstruction, because that specific area, they treated like they treated runway 1432. What I mean by that is they came through and tried to crack and see